Here's Broadway Maven co-host Mateo Chavez Lewis.
I'm specifically going to look at Conrad Birdie because he is obviously designed to represent Elvis, and the story is based on Elvis being drafted into the army, which is a real life event. So the way that it's very interesting the way that they write music for the character of Conrad, because when Conrad is performing and playing the songs that are his hits, they emulate the music of Elvis Presley's hits. But when Conrad is singing as a person, as a human being off stage, it kind of diverges away from that kind of music a little bit. So I want to kind of break that down for you. So the first one of Conrad's three big solos is obviously Honestly Sincere, which we just heard part of in the YouTube video. And this kind of uses something very similar to what's called the 12-bar blues. And the 12-bar blues is a sound that if you were around in the 50s, you know this sound. It's this. Sound familiar? It's actually a very, very simple chord progression. So it's just C, F, and sometimes there's a seventh note added. So that funky little note to give it kind of that twang to it. And then back, so C, F, C, and then we have G, F, C. And that's the 12-bar blues. And that was used in 1,000,005 rock and roll / blues / rhythm and blues songs in the 50s and 60s, including like, we were talking about how I'm going to play Jerry Lee Lewis this summer. You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain, that's C. Too much love drives a man insane, that's F. You broke my will, that's G, down to, but what a thrill, that's F. And then back to C, goodness gracious, great balls of fire. And 1,000,005 songs use that as well. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. That's the 12-bar blues. C to F to C, and then G, F, C. Honestly Sincere uses the exact same chords. We have, if you're really sincere, if you're really sincere, if you feel it in here, then it's gonna be right, oh baby. We have C, F, G, C. So it's the same three chords. It's a little bit of a truncated version of this famous chord progression, but it does use the same chords as that chord progression. So it's like a snippet of the chord progression is used and is the basis for Honestly Sincere. And the 12-bar blues, because it's very simple. It's three chords, that's it. Very simple chords. So that's often used in like very rhythmic, upbeat songs where the melody is not as important and the harmonic music is not as important. It's more about the rhythm and the entertainment and the dancing, and that's more the focus. So songs that are like that, songs like Hound Dog by Elvis Presley, often will use the 12-bar blues, and similarly Honestly Sincere is like that, where it's all about the dancing and it's not about specific melodies. For example, it's written here for him to sing, oh my baby, oh yeah, and the singer can kind of ad-lib, which means improvise a little bit. It's not a specifically written melody. It's not like, oh my baby, oh yeah. It's not that kind of music. It's very improvised, kind of just shouting on rhythm and dancing hard and having fun. It's not about specific notes. It's not about how complicated and beautiful the chords are. So that's what the 12-bar blues does, and that's what Honestly Sincere is. Then we have One Last Kiss, which is a little bit more of a love ballad. And for that, it also borrows a chord progression, which is instead of C, F, G, it's C, A minor, F, G. So we add this minor chord, which gives it, that emotion. And this is, wise men say, only fools rush in. Right?
Join our free weekly Broadway appreciation classes at thebroadwaymaven.com.
Elvis Presley uses this chord progression, this C, A minor, F, G, for his like romantic ballads, like I think Love Me Tender also uses it somewhere in it, but I'm not sure about that. I haven't looked at it, but Can Wise Men Say is definitely this C, A minor, F, G chord progression, which is the same as heart and soul. I fell in love with you, lost control, just like a fool would do, right? And that is the same chord progression as One Last Kiss. Oh, one last kiss, oh, give me one last kiss. It never felt like this, no, never felt like this. You know I need your love. Whoa, oh, oh, so give me one last kiss. C, A minor, F, G. So One Last Kiss uses the chord progression that Elvis Presley's songs that were more of a ballad tended to use. And Honestly Sincere uses the chords that the upbeat dancing songs that Elvis Presley released would use, right? So they're very clearly making fun of or paying homage to Elvis Presley's music. But then if you look at Conrad Birdie's final big solo, it's a lot of living to do, and it's not him performing, right? It's not Conrad Birdie performing his big hits. It's Conrad Birdie as a person expressing to the audience how he's feeling in this moment. And so suddenly he's no longer using his Elvis Presley style music. And the very first chord we get is, there are chicks just right for some kissing, right? And that chord, already that's a major 7th chord, which is a chord you would never really see in rock and roll music, because it's got this like this very beautiful but strange sounding little crunch there. So it's a funny little chord, and it sounds very dreamy, right? But it's not what you would hear in, like, compare this sound, right, to this sound. It's totally different. It's like this, and that's actually something, the major 7th chord, this dreamy chord, is something that Charles Strauss used in like Annie, for example. So it's much more musical theater. Like if you think about maybe far away. That's a major 7th chord in Annie. So it feels much more musical theater. It feels much more a character honestly expressing their emotions, and it feels much less like Elvis Presley rock and roll. And so we kind of get to see this Elvis Presley facade with these chord progressions we've all heard and loved. We kind of get to see that fade away, and we get to see who's the individual underneath, which I think is a pretty cool way of using music to tell that story. Back to you, David.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, Mateo. We've talked in the class about diegetic and non-diegetic music, and you're talking about that. Do you want to explain?
So diegetic music is where the characters know that they're singing. If in the story the character is a singer who sings, and this is their performance, and they're singing this song, then the character knows they're singing, and it's not musical theater land where characters sing to express their emotions. It's actually just genuinely this person is singing a song because that's their job. Think about, so the first two songs I talked about, Honestly Sincere and One Last Kiss, are diegetic. Conrad Birdie is actually singing Honestly Sincere at this welcome performance, and Conrad Birdie is actually singing One Last Kiss on the Ed Sullivan Show. And diegetic music, like the TV show Glee, uses a lot of diegetic music where, okay, your assignment is to sing a song. They get up and they sing the song, right? So it's not magical characters break out into song, and how does everyone know the choreography? Everyone knows the choreography because in a diegetic song, they've learned it. The characters have actually learned the choreography, right? It's actually a rehearsed performance in the story. Non-diegetic is not that, right? Non-diegetic is classic music theater where they're like, you know what? I'm feeling a feeling. Now I'm going to sing about my feeling. And and everyone's like, where's that music coming from? And it's the make-believe world of musical theater that's non-diegetic, and a lot of living to do, which is the song that doesn't sound like Elvis Presley songs, is the non-diegetic song where actually he's not performing in that scene. He's just expressing how he feels. So it is diegetic versus non-diegetic is the same difference between Conrad Birdie the superstar and Conrad Birdie the person.
Hair was off Broadway in 1967.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people say, oh, that was the first rock musical. But this is a musical about rock. Do you think it's a rock musical?
See, I would call this a rock musical. I think the difference between this and Hair is first of all, the kind of rock that it used. Like this was pre-Beatles and Hair was post-Beatles rock. And that is the really important distinction to me. Hair sounds very different, and it sounds much more like rock. And the other difference is that Hair's entire score sounds like that, whereas Bye Bye Birdie, there are specific songs that borrow from the rock music, but a lot of songs, like A Lot of Living to Do, for example, sound like classic Golden Age music theater. So that would be the distinction that I would make. Although, like, Honestly Sincere, this is very clearly rock music, right? If you're really sincere, if you're really sincere, if you feel it in here, then it's gonna be right, oh baby, right?
Yeah, it may be that those who say, oh, Bye Bye Birdie is not a rock musical may be sort of dismissing that era of rock and roll, or they may be blowing off Bye Bye Birdie as fluff or something like that. But the music in it is real rock music.
It certainly is. It certainly is the closest thing to rock music that had ever been on the Broadway stage at that point.
Right.
And yesterday I was surprised to learn that Bye Bye Birdie was actually predated Hair.
Yeah.
Because of two things. First of all, it sounds a lot like Grease, right? And it's the kind of music that it uses, like the heart and soul chord progression is also Those Magic Changes and We Go Together. Right, it's and it's also One Last Kiss, so it sounds a lot like Grease. So I assumed it was kind of written at the same time, but I hadn't looked it up. So I was very surprised to learn that they actually were putting this kind of music on the Broadway stage in 1960. Because think about, in 1959, the most popular musical the year before was literally The Sound of Music, which sounds so different. It's so right. And then this chord, like this, compare that to right, it's so different. So it's pretty, I think people who discount this as a rock musical discount how outside of the realm of anything that had ever been heard on Broadway before it was when it came out in 1960. It was so remarkably different.
Okay. I think you make a good case. It is not the typical case about what the first rock musical is, but if anybody has the right to correct that opinion, it's certainly you. So I appreciate your help with that, Mateo. Please like and subscribe. Join our free weekly Broadway appreciation classes at thebroadwaymaven.com. The Broadway Maven's Weekly Blast comes out every Thursday. It contains essays, reviews, YouTube gems, surveys, and more. And then there's a YouTube channel, which has more than 150 videos on all aspects of musical theater. And here are some more Broadway Maven piano talks.